The Starfield leaks and rumor mill is in full force this week as we have major details coming in now about the future of Starfield, when its next DLC might be expected to release, as well as its PlayStation 5 release and some potential new features. This new wave of updates has stirred the pot in a major way because we're no longer just talking about a simple delayed expansion, we're talking about what I think might be a possible final update for Starfield, a pivot in direction for Bethesda, and Microsoft making big decisions behind the scenes that could change the course of this game forever. So let's dive right into it. First up, let's talk about that potential Starfield delay. According to a recent report from MP First, Starfield's next big expansion, its second one, which may or may not be called Starborn, as we've seen from recent trademark filings, well, that might now be delayed until spring 2026. That is a pretty big deal. In previous interviews, Todd Howard had promised yearly updates for Starfield, at least through its second expansion, which is what we're all currently still waiting for, but it appears that those promises might be falling through, at least for now. So if Starfield's next DLC drops in 2026, that's a major shift in strategy for Bethesda and their future Starfield plans, but that's not all. That same spring 2026 window is apparently when Microsoft is possibly planning to release Starfield on the PlayStation 5, another huge shift for the game that was originally an Xbox exclusive. I think we knew this was only a matter of time now that Microsoft's Xbox strategy is starting to fully form. That strategy is to essentially publish everything on all major platforms, no more exclusives. Obviously, they want to do that to reach the widest audience possible and bring in the most revenue, since console sales aren't really the same moneymaker for Xbox that they once were. Now, this isn't just wild speculation. The report cites weak sales from the Shattered Space expansion as being a major reason behind Starfield's second DLC delay. It seems that Microsoft really wants to take their time with this expansion, get it polished up, and potentially add even more features to make the best possible version of Starfield for when it hits that PlayStation 5 audience later next year, which is probably another big reason for the DLC possibly getting delayed. Essentially, it seems like they're preparing a sort of soft reboot for Starfield in 2026, 3 years after its initial release. And this does make a lot of sense to me, a relaunch on the new platform with a fresh round of quality of life updates and maybe one final shot at real success. And many of us are wondering if this might be Starfield's big moment, maybe a complete overhaul, giving it that Cyberpunk 2077 approach to achieve some kind of redemption arc, which brings us to yet another leak, something which was recently found in the game's code. So in the past few weeks, a Reddit user by the name of XTC Refuge uncovered something really interesting in the Starfield Steam update files. Among thousands of lines of new script changes were references to something players had been asking for since launch: interplanetary travel. The new lines of code mentioned things like cruise mode and far travel, and even space encounter triggers that could happen while cruising between planets. This doesn't seem to reference your typical fast travel or grav jump either. This suggests that Bethesda might be working on a more immersive way to navigate through space, possibly inspired by the recent Astrogate mod, which already allows for some better in-system flight options. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean full surface-to-space travel like we've seen in other games like No Man's Sky, but it does hint at a major evolution in how players move around the Starfield universe. Fewer loading screens, more ship immersion, maybe even real-time travel between planets, with the option to get up and explore your ship along the way. We actually have seen an extremely early version of this pre-release, in fact, where the Starfield star map had not just a travel distance, but also a time tracker which listed minutes. Now, I can imagine this being an optional feature, but something that would be really nice for increasing immersion, as you could get up, walk around your ship, converse with your companions, check your inventory, etc., all while traveling through the stars. While Bethesda does have a track record of being quiet when it comes to their upcoming releases, the silence around Starfield lately is pretty deafening. My guess here is that they were completely blindsided by how their first expansion, Shattered Space, was generally received, and that they've been working extremely hard since then to make this second expansion hit all the right notes, actually giving the game some momentum again. But here's the thing, with how this second expansion is shaping up, and with Starfield finally releasing on PS5, I'm personally starting to wonder if this next expansion might be the last we hear from Starfield for quite some time. And not only do we have Elder Scrolls 6 on the horizon, we have news of Fallout 5 getting greenlit, but we have to realize that even if Bethesda wants to continue to push and support Starfield, That's actually not their decision anymore. Microsoft owns Bethesda, and as we've seen with the recent gutting of another Bethesda-linked studio in ZeniMax Online, Microsoft is not playing around. If they don't see the profits coming in on the balance sheet, they're not going to support that title. 100%. They've already done it. Now, many people enjoy Starfield, but the game has clearly underperformed Microsoft expectations at this point. Remember that Microsoft purchased Bethesda for over $7 billion back in 2020? That's billion with a B. Microsoft was clearly hoping to cash in on a major upcoming franchise for Bethesda with Starfield, because that's what the studio was known for with The Elder Scrolls and Fallout, both two massively successful franchises. And while Starfield did have a very strong launch back in 2023, things were looking great, player retention dropped off very soon after that, and the first DLC disappointed many players who were hoping for a return to form for Bethesda. I actually really enjoyed the game. I have hundreds of hours played as well, but for some reason, the game just hasn't really clicked with the usual Bethesda fanbase. Skyrim has many more active players still, as does Fallout 4 right now. And these are much, much older games. So as hard as Bethesda might try, the brutal truth here is that Starfield will probably never achieve the same amount of success as The Elder Scrolls and Fallout. I'm sure it could do well with enough time and polish, but again, Microsoft isn't willing to chance anything anymore. All they want to focus on is guaranteed money, especially sequels to already successful franchises like The Elder Scrolls and Fallout. This new direction for Xbox Studios is really brutal. We saw ZeniMax Online Studios' next AAA MMO get deleted after apparently getting great reviews, even from Phil Spencer during development. It had actually been developed for 8 years, greenlit the entire way with no doubt millions of dollars invested, and it will still never get released. Betting on Starfield to become the next Elder Scrolls franchise is kind of a similar situation when you think about it. Sure, Bethesda could continue to pour money into the game, having their development team spend even more time fixing it up, but Microsoft probably isn't willing to take that bet anymore. That's why I think instead we might see Starfield get one final update next year, release that simultaneously on PS5 to maximize revenue, and then simply go quiet for a little while. Seeing Microsoft's recent moves, this seems like the most likely scenario to me. They've already greenlit Fallout 5 as the next major Bethesda project after Elder Scrolls 6, and I'm sure they'd rather see Bethesda put as much resources as possible into those two games rather than continue making Starfield updates. So, will this next update, reportedly in 2026, be the end of Starfield? As I said, something like a Starfield Complete Edition seems more likely, and honestly, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. Microsoft wants Bethesda focused on blockbusters. Starfield didn't land quite the way they'd hoped, and pouring more money into Starfield DLC or new updates that only a fraction of players might actually play, that's not why Microsoft bought Bethesda in the first place. Releasing a polished final update with things like immersive travel, ship upgrades, maybe some more quality of life changes, and the PlayStation 5 version of Starfield, giving them one final marketing push for the game before shifting everything into the Elder Scrolls 6. That seems more likely. What I do expect to see, though, for Starfield, even beyond next year, is the continued support of modding via Starfield Creations. For dedicated Starfield players, these are becoming more popular than ever. Take the new Watchtower mod, for example, which adds a brand new storyline, new factions, and new features like airstrikes and fleet building for just around $10. But these mods are getting better and better every month, and some have real development teams behind them now. So the actual results of what they can do here are getting pretty impressive. So when you think about the future of Starfield, this is real new content that Bethesda and Microsoft can profit from without spending one single development dollar themselves. While it's probably not as much income as they might get for a full DLC, this is income that can build up over time, year over year, mod by mod, and this lets their development team focus, again, on those big upcoming franchises, which Microsoft definitely prefers as well. Of course, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section below. Do you think Starfield's next update might be its last? Or do you think it will continue getting support and updates for years to come? As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you around in the next video.